Mention the South Shore town of Duxbury to someone who lives elsewhere in the Boston area, and a certain set of associations spring to mind. Expensive homes, beautiful beaches, a great school system. But now the town's image is being tarnished by revelations that Duxbury High School's powerhouse football team had a practice of using anti-Semitic terms to call plays, using words like Auschwitz, gas chamber, and Holocaust to dictate the action on the field. The coach has been fired, games have been canceled, and the town is working with the Anti-Defamation League and an outside investigator to figure out how this happened and what should come next. But moving past the controversy may not be easy. Joining me to discuss Duxbury's path forward are Karen Wong, a former school committee member who's now part of the group Duxbury For All, and State Senator Barry Finegold, who recently met with the Duxbury High School football team after writing them an open letter. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Karen, let me start with you. You are a Jewish resident of Duxbury. You're married to a Chinese-American man. You had a son play football at Duxbury High under a different coach. Were you surprised when these revelations came to light?
I was very surprised. Actually, it was the same coach, but it was before all this, the language changed for the play calls. I've thought about this, especially now I've had almost 2 weeks since then. I was shocked. Not that anti-Semitic language would be used, but used in this way. And I think there's like different stages of grief, and it was, shock, hurt, outrage. Now it's just, trying to understand a little bit more about why it happened and if it did happen for so long.
One question that I think a lot of people who don't know Duxbury well, including myself, have had since this came to light is, all right, was this a problem with a particular culture that was created around the football team over the course of the now departed coach's tenure? Or is it reflective of some sort of bigger problem in the town itself? What's your take on that?
This is just, my gut reaction is it's obviously a bigger problem. As a matter of fact, I know it is. I can't say, how wide and how far it spreads, but I just, I have 3 adult children. They're all in their 20s. And I knew that they would experience some, anti-race, some racist and anti-Semitic comments growing up. I just didn't realize how every day it was, how continuous. It is one of those things that you can call them microaggressions, but after, one of my kids said literally every day in middle and high school, not a day went by when there wasn't some comment made. So I think it's definitely, a bigger problem than one team. But I want to look at this as an opportunity because it hurt me when you said our town's been tarnished by this, but it's a fair statement. And I really hope that our town isn't judged by this really terrible anti-Semitic situation, but how we handle it. So I think that, I don't want to jump ahead here, but I think there's a lot of good that can come out of this.
That's actually a good time to bring in you, Senator Finegold. You wrote an open letter to the Duxbury High School football team, and I believe you were contacted by a player who said that they wanted to speak with you. Am I correct there?
Yes.
What was that conversation like?
Oh, it was a conversation that they wanted to have a discussion, and we said, okay.
So what did you talk about with them? What did you say? To the extent that you can, how did they respond to what you said?
So when I spoke to the team, I explained that I was someone that played high school and college football, that football has been a huge part of my life. It's the reason why I am where I am today. But Judaism is also part of my life as well, and those two very important things collided in this issue. And I just wanted to explain to them why using the word Auschwitz is so hurtful and harmful to people that are Jewish. And I think at the end of the day, they understood that. So to me, I thought it was a very productive conversation and something that I think, was received quite well.
You and I talked a little bit earlier. You mentioned that you showed them some video of Elie Wiesel, I think, talking about the Holocaust. Showed them, I believe, a clip or two from Schindler's List.
Yep.
Were they when you spoke with them, and I know that this was a private conversation, and if you can't get into this, just tell me you can't, but I'm wondering if they were penitent when they talked to you, or if they seemed surprised about all the fuss that surrounded the comments they made. Maybe I'm putting it badly. I'm wondering if they said...
No, listen, I think they were very sincere in their remorse, but I think the important thing that what I really stress to them is, with Elie Wiesel, when Jewish people talk about the Holocaust, it's not about wanting people to cry for us, not to feel pity for us, but in his words, it's about making the world a better place. And that the reason why I brought up Elie Wiesel is that he talks about everyone being a messenger of good. And what I hope to come from this was that people can learn from it, people can learn, be better people for it, and then do good.
Karen, as we talk about all this stuff, I'm struck by the tension between, on the one hand, fully reckoning with something that happened that was bad, and then attempting to move past it, transcend it in some way. You mentioned at a select board meeting earlier this week that you've talked to all sorts of Jewish residents in town, also all sorts of football families, that your understanding is that this goes back almost a decade, but that there is also a reluctance on the part of some of the people that you've been talking to be fully open as the town works with an outside investigator to bring everything to light. What do you make of that reluctance?
That is a really good question. And at this point, I don't know on the record how long this has been going on. I've had a lot of kind of hushed conversations with current and former football families who are uncomfortable to come forward. I'm not quite sure why. I can't really answer that. I can't actually reconcile that with myself, to be quite honest. But I think that now that there's an investigator, an outside investigator, who is going to take information confidentially, the names will not be released to the public, and a little bit more time has passed where people can get over the initial shock. And certainly for the football families, this is a coach who has been loved and admired for a long time and has done a lot of good. So it's, kind of coming to grips with those two things. So I am hoping that more people, current and former football players, will come forward and speak to the investigator, because that's the only way we can really get to the truth on, exactly what happened and for how long. And I think that's important for the community. Certainly it is for the Jewish community.
You mentioned, and I'm glad that you did, your visceral response when I said that Duxbury's image had been tarnished by this. I think I may have mentioned to both of you before this segment, I live in Swampscott, where there was very close scrutiny. I actually reported on it for WGBH. There was a selectman who made some very dismissive comments about Black Lives Matter. He was at a restaurant. The server publicized his comments on social media. There was subsequently a recall push aimed at the selectman. It's a different kind of situation, but I think I have an understanding of what you're talking about when the town that you live in and the community that you love and where you've brought up your family, where it is cast in a very unpleasant light. And on the one hand, you want to reckon with what's been brought to the surface. But on the other hand, you also want to tell people, no, this is a good place in so many different ways. For what it's worth, I just wanted to mention that and point out that I think a lot of communities are dealing with issues such as this right now in our nation's history. And one of the things that makes me a little uncomfortable sometimes focusing on one community is I feel like it can make us not reckon with what's going on closer to home.
Go ahead, Senator. That's a really good point, because I think one of the things that is a takeaway for us is that, we need to do a better job about genocide legislation. And when I spoke to the students, I talked about Rwanda, I talked to Bosnia. 35% of students in Massachusetts can't really tell what Auschwitz means. So we have a problem, not only maybe in Duxbury, we have a problem throughout this whole state. And I think one of the things we want to do is pass legislation that makes genocide learning mandated. And it's not only Jewish genocide, it's Armenian genocide, the killing fields in Cambodia, and Rwanda and Bosnia. So we need to do a better job as lawmakers to educate our young people in the state.
And that's in the works right now at Beacon Hill, right?
Yep. Yep.
Karen,
I applaud that. I'm thrilled. It's an elective course, genocide and Holocaust studies in Duxbury. It's not mandatory. And a friend of mine just told me that only 16 states in the United States do mandate this type of education. So, I think it's a good thing. I really appreciate you doing that on Beacon Hill.
Karen, I want to give you the last word here because you are the Duxbury resident who's on the front lines with this issue. We have about 2 minutes left. What do you want to see happen in the coming months in your town?
Well, first off, I want to see families have a lot of conversations, not just around the Holocaust and the fact that Auschwitz actually really represents the vision of killing every single Jewish person on the planet. I mean, that was the hope. I think I want families to have a lot of conversations about, what it means to not be neutral. If they see something, say something. And I want kids to feel comfortable going to their families, going to a trusted adult at school with some information, no matter what. If they see something they're uncomfortable with, they need to know that that is okay and that's not a violation of some kind of trust. It's actually a loving thing to report something that's dangerous. I know the schools are looking for a lot of different programs. I'm excited. I hope I can get this in. Before this incident happened, Duxbury For All had already been working very closely with the Board of Selectmen, and they made a diversity, equity, inclusion proclamation at the beginning of February. Who knew that we were going to have to go to them so soon? And you saw me at the meeting this week. Not only did they reaffirm it with the new members, they want all the town departments to affirm that proclamation. They want to put money in the budget for training because I could use training. As I said at the meeting, I'm just a concerned citizen. I'm just like going on instincts here.
Well,
but there's a lot to learn.
And this seems to me, it's not just in Duxbury that people could use training on this sort of thing. So
right. So to have the town leaders across all the departments so we can be a more welcoming and open, inclusive community and just learn and understand.
Unfortunately, I apologize for interrupting, especially given what we're talking about. We have to wrap it up there. Karen Wong, thank you for being here. And State Senator Barry Finegold, thank you as well.
Thank you.